The simple life of a farmer. All you need is land, family, sunshine, and rain. And a drone for digital imaging. And software to run geospatial analysis. And an understanding of genetics, biology, climatology, economics, global trading, and estate planning. So you can pass this so-called simple life on to your kids. At Pioneer, we're proud to work with generations of American farmers in the most complex and rewarding industry on earth. So from your friends at Pioneer, thank you, farmers.
We want to go right to the Matt and Val hotline, where a very busy Attorney General Steve Marshall awaits for a few moments to talk to us about activity going on in his office this morning. Steve, so good of you to call us. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. By the way, I'm just really calling to get Jay to sign that free contract to be a part of this morning.
John Marshall, I would be happy to do whatever I can to help you. I mean that in all sincerity. Y'all have got a lot better lawyers than me down there, but I enjoy you. You know, I actually did some work for the office when Luther was AG. So yeah. I'm here. I'm here. Anything you need, I will do, as long as it's not wearing an Alabama football jersey.
No problem. And by the way, I've appreciated Jay's analysis today, because I think particularly with regard to the OSHA rule, he's been spot on. And I think kind of Jay's arguments are reflected in the complaint that will be filed this morning in Florida, is that not only is OSHA violating the statute, but I think there's broader concerns about the effort to use OSHA to really deal with a public health issue. And
you know, we've described it in simpleton terms as the square peg round hole deal, but you know, Jay has gotten down more specific to it. Speak, Attorney General, to this issue of whether or not OSHA is an appropriate avenue for the president or someone within the federal government to take, considering that, as Jay has described it, this is not anything unique to the workplace.
No, and I think there's more risk at the dinner table than there is in the workplace. That's just the reality. And if there is some argument that there is an emergency situation, it doesn't exist. I think Val's point has been really good today about, you know, are we really in that emergency situation anymore? And is there a reason why there should be this emergency action? And one thing, Jay, I would also add, and particularly to your last caller, I don't know if you noticed that within the issuance of the rule, there is, you know, a comment period that's going to go along with this. As you well know, that's part of where the challenge will be in an administrative law setting.
Right.
But they're talking about applying this to employers less than 100.
Oh, really?
And whether or not they want to consider pushing this down. Because, I mean, why 100 anyway, right?
Right.
What's the arbitrary nature of that designation? But this is an administration that is talking about even applying it in a broader way based on a fewer number of employees. And the facts just simply don't support it. I think we're going to have a very strong challenge here. But the other thing that I think y'all have highlighted is you've got businesses that not only have folks over 100, but they're also either subs of federal contractors or federal contractors. And so we have these dueling mandates as well as dueling lawsuits in play that folks are going to have to pay attention to. I think we all recognize what the January 4th pushback of the deadline was, and I think y'all have spoken specifically to the practical realities of it. But from a litigation side, it also speaks, and if we're pushing a date back by another month, then where's the urgency and where's the emergency? Because if, in fact, you're trying to quell an emergency situation, then why are you giving them another month?
Right. If it's a big enough,
what a great.
That's
so
point.
Smart.
That makes sense. I mean,
you're so smart.
Yeah. If it's a big enough emergency that you're going to use the power and force of the federal government to do this, then why can you push it back for a month? Right.
Yeah. And they're going to have to answer that question. And I think if I'm a federal judge and I'm considering, because y'all obviously the critical element is the injunctive relief. Because if we don't get the injunctive relief, then we can't provide any relief at all, because folks are going to have to be compliant, or they're going to have the testing protocol in place. And if I'm a federal judge, I'm looking at the government to say, if this is so compelling, then why did you choose that date? And why did you take your other two emergency orders from the president, executive orders, and modify a date when in fact you're arguing this pandemic creates that emergency?
Have you filed, correct, Attorney General?
Now we've got the federal contractor case that was filed last Friday. If, in fact, Matt, it has not been filed yet this morning in Florida, it should be within minutes.
And
we'll follow that is the request for injunctive relief that will be coming either later today or tomorrow.
Northern District of Florida?
I think that's right, Jay. I'm not completely sure on that, but I think it is.
I think Jay's looking at me like if we agree with you, Attorney General, that this is an overreach in the areas that we've discussed, it would behoove us to be.
That's a fair place.
That's a fair place
we just
to be.
Want a fair court.
Is that a fair? Would that be a fair court?
We hope so. I mean, that's obviously part of the decision-making process and filing. You know, the one thing that I think also that y'all can appreciate, and Jay particularly, these are labor-intensive cases. And so sometimes people ask, well, why doesn't Alabama file their specific case in Alabama?
Right.
We don't need 50 or 26 challenges. There are 26 Republican attorneys general. And so we want to make sure that we're maximizing the resources and having the people in play to deal with it. Because the other thing that y'all have not talked about today that I'm aware of is you have the rule that was also announced yesterday involving CMS funding or Medicaid and Medicare funding. And that's also one that although that challenge will not be filed today, it will be filed shortly. And interestingly on that one, they are not allowing a testing exception. They're simply saying everyone has to be vaccinated. Mm-hmm. And so that is the third case of this trilogy that will be sort of playing out as well, with also a January 4th deadline that Alabama has a very specific interest in as well. And so I think you'll see, again, other states joining together, pushing back against that issuance of that rule as well.
Well, I know you're incredibly busy, Attorney General, and I don't want to take up too much of your time. Of course, Steve Marshall with us on the Matt and Val hotline right now. I want to ask you a question I asked Jay St. Clair a little earlier this morning, and that is this. We have many business owners that listen to our show, certainly many employees of companies of a size that they're concerned about this January 4th deadline. Would you, and I know your role is a little bit different than Jay's, but would you offer any advice to those business owners right now with regard to how they should react to the OSHA ruling or the OSHA regulation and the decision on your part and your fellow attorneys general to file suit? Any advice to business owners this morning?
Yeah, I got to be a little careful, Matt, because my bar license does not allow me to give legal advice. But I think, and by the way, Jay, I want to know what your off-the-air advice was. I'll have to get that off. I do believe that Jay is spot on, is that this is going to play out in the courts. And particularly knowing that there are testing opportunities as opposed to compelling vaccination, it gives businesses an opportunity, I think, to see what's going to go on over the next several weeks. I think you always need to be thinking about how to be prepared. But I will tell you, I feel abundantly confident on the ability to stay the OSHA rule.
And I was just adding to that, General Marshall, I thought your advice to employers about being very careful about religious and medical exemptions, I thought that was very good advice.
I appreciate that. Yep. Thank you. The one thing I would also offer, though, relating to federal contractor, is Jay kind of recognizes the standing issue is one that courts look at about whether or not we can file challenges. And there's some question about standing for us to just generically file on the federal contractor rule when we learned the combined from Alabama and Auburn $600 million receiving funds as a federal contractor gave us the ability to weigh in. But some of the relief that we would request from the courts really specific to kind of those state agencies and entities that are listed, we have to win under a procurement count, which basically the argument is Congress didn't give the president the ability to secure goods and services and allow that power to extend to dictate public health policy. And so if we're able to win on the procurement count, that's going to apply broadly enough to private businesses across the board. But that is a little bit of a nuance that I think has to be considered when businesses, if they fall into that federal contractor category, are going to have to consider in their planning purposes. But again, we're pushing that hard. Arizona already has a hearing date. I think we need to be watching that. But you have cases pending in Florida, Georgia. I think there'll be several cases filed, or several states today, and a case led by Louisiana. So I think you're going to see multiple courts weigh in on that quicker than the January 4th deadline.
Well, AJ, very illuminating. Thank you so much for everything you're doing out of your office to protect individual liberties and business rights as well. One more thing before you go. I was thinking about this as you were speaking, and I think I'm going to be presumptuous enough to act as mediator between you and Jay, because I think that it's a fair compromise to tell you, Attorney General, that Jay will charge you the same thing he charges us every Friday for his legal work for your office. If that's fair with you, we'll go with that.
Fair for me. Fair for me. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. There's Steve Marshall. He's very busy, and I appreciate his time this morning. It was good of him to call in and give where we are as a state. And look, I understand that they've got the legislative piece moving forward. I think far before any of that comes to fruition, this is where this is going to be won and lost. Would you agree with that, John?
I agree. Absolutely.
All right. Quick timeout, John. Is that no? Oh, you broke. Okay, John broke it up, so we can go to a few telephone calls, and we won't have to take a break till I guess Jason Lee at about 25 after the hour. JT is next to talk vaccinations and mandates and the like. Hey, JT.
Good morning. Curious question. If there's not an injunction before January 4th, and if you are a business that actually has over 100 employees, which would fall under the OSHA mandate, if my understanding is correct, yet you also offer services and care like nursing homes, which falls under the CMS mandate, which mandate do you actually have to follow?
It's a great question. And all of this is moving so fast. I can't give you a locked cinch answer, but I think the answer is going to be you got to follow both of them. The question is what happens if there is a difference between the two. See, I don't think the OSHA allows the testing alternative. The contractor does, but I hadn't read each of them specifically. But you would generally have to follow them both. If there's a conflict between the two, one would think that the authors would say, or the government will give guidance and say, if there's a conflict, you got to do this one or that one. There'll be some guidance on that. But my guess is the requirement's not going to be much different.
Well, now the OSHA does not allow for religious or medical exception.
No, I don't think that's right. The one that may not is on the medical side. But the OSHA one does allow for medical and religious exemptions.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much.
The medical one may not, at least not for religion. I know that's the way they did it up in the Northeast. But frankly, I'd be really surprised even if this administration, again, they're a little bit hoisted on their own petard. I mean, they're advocates of the disabled, but then they're going to say we're not going to allow medical exemptions for this.
Yeah, how do you do that?
The PR side of that is really bad.
Well, I think it's falling.
It's falling apart.
Thank you, JT.
Yeah,
it's falling apart.
You're about to say that.
Yeah. I mean, in a lot of different ways, it's falling apart. And which goes back to my question from the political side of this: what is your end game at this point?
Right.
What are you trying to accomplish?
I think it's the same kind of strategy they used in Virginia.
I mean,
that worked well, huh?
Right?
Yeah.
Hey, you parents, get out of here. Y'all don't have anything to do with this.
No, parents shouldn't have anything to do with what their kids are taught at school. I think it's the same kind of logic, man.
I mean,
Semper Fi.
Is she not awesome?
Man.
Miss Sears. I mean, she's pretty
Winsome's, I love her name.
Pretty sharp.
First and foremost.
They were searching for a motto for their followers on social media the last couple of days. You know what they settled on?
Win some, lose some?
No, the Winsome Warriors.
Oh, I like that.
Winsome Warriors.
The Winsome Warriors.
Yeah.
She's Marine.
It doesn't get better for that for 2022, 2024.
She also sent this out. We're going to clean up Virginia first. And then
What's
we're
next?
moving on.
Yep.
Here's the deal with that. I know, a lot of times you can tell how effective certain things are, strategies and the like, by observing political opponents or adversaries and see how they react to it. And I've learned over the years that I call them hashtag Never CNN for a reason, because I don't think people should watch them. They become an advocacy organization. Right. And so I look. And I watch.
I bet I know what you're going to say. When they ignore you, they are scared to
death.
Yep, death. That's right.
And liberal media outlets, they didn't even touch it.
They got no angles.
Yeah.
They got no angles.
But what a story she has. Why didn't they? I mean, we know why they didn't, but what a story.
Yeah, well, y'all look it up. We'll tell you, too. We'll keep you up to date. Jay, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Wow.
I'll
This has
see
been a
you at
great
Tim Ryan Golf Club in the morning.
Jay, we love
bright
you.
and
Have a
early.
great weekend.
Bright and early. But get your poncho. Better
cover that.
Get your golf balls warm. And everything else. Back after this.